Hi, I'm Steve Barlow. This is the Humanised Workforce Future You podcast video, where we're talking about perceptions of the future, issues that we need to be aware of, and their role in a rapidly changing work and life environment.
Hi, I'm Craig Saffin. The Humanised Workforce Future You podcast series is focused on the key factors evolving to create a more humanised workforce and how people from all walks of life are creating their future selves.
Thanks for joining us again at the Humanised Workforce Future You podcast. Today we've got as our special guest Mark Purbrick. He's joining us from Sydney. So welcome, Mark. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Steve, and Craig. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast today. About myself, so probably the story goes back about 20 years, which is probably most relevant to where I am now. So 20 years ago, really, I was a professional CEO, professional senior executive, principally in the wine industry, as it turns out. And by trade, I'm a winemaker by trade, going back, but have never made wine. But I've worked in every facet of that. So in direct marketing and logistics, in marketing, in sales, so really covering the whole gambit of all of that. So it was back around about 20 years ago when I was working for the Foster's Wine Club division, where it was probably the pivotal moment where I understood how important people are in your business. And it was when I started using 360-degree appraisals for myself and my management team to look at leadership and improve leadership capability, and also using psychometric assessments to essentially to select the best people for the role. What happened during that was when I was using the psychometric assessments that I was using was, some of them I found to be totally inadequate, and they tended to be more the 4-quadrant, more simple psychometric assessments, and I don't think they should be used for selection. They're great for development, but not for selection. And then I was using some other tools that were highly valid and gave very consistent feedback on the people. The itchy feeling I had on the back of the neck, though, was that's all well and good to tell me what the person's going to be like, but are they going to be great in the job I want to put them into? And to tell you the truth, what I was talking about was whether they had fit to the role. I didn't know that's what I was talking about, but that's really what I was asking. And the psychologist who was supplying the assessments at that time, she couldn't answer that question. I left that organisation and then became the CEO of the Wine Society, and the Wine Society then was losing about $500,000 a year, and within 18 months we turned it around to making about 1.8 million. And a big part of that, not all of it, but a big part of that was to get the people right. And I remember it was on one of my first days in the CEO chair, and I called all the senior managers in and I said, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to be spending 40% of my time on the people. I'm going to be spending about 30% of my time on strategy going forward, and 30% of my time with our customers, with our members, and understanding them. You guys are running the business. And what happened then, Steve, was I was then introduced to these job fit assessments, which I still use because they are amazingly accurate assessments. And we were able to create high performance benchmarks for every role within the organisation, and that allowed us to understand why people weren't performing in some roles because they were actually put in the wrong role, and especially in the contact centre. So they were put into outbound contact centre when really they should have been in inbound, because that's what they were most suited to, and their critical success attributes were aligned to that. So out of the 70, I think there were 73 employees there. Out of the 73, I only had to let go 2. One was a senior manager and one was an employee. They had all the talent there, they just weren't using it. And like I said, within 18 months, we'd gone from $500,000 loss a year to $1.8 million surplus. So the power of them was unbelievable, really. And then through a quirk of fate, the organisation, the assessment organisation, then approached me whether I wanted to essentially take on the rights for the region here, and that's what I did. So that's how PeopleLogica was born, and we started off as a psychometric assessment provider and consultant. And we now offer pre-employment skills and knowledge testing, video interviewing. We have 2 psychometric assessment platforms, and they both measure fit. And we also have a survey platform that provides customised leadership surveys, employee surveys, board evaluation surveys. You name it, it can survey it. So and very customisable. So that's probably about me.
Wow, that's fascinating, Mark. Very, very interesting. One thing that stuck out to me, what you said, is that spending 40% of your time as a CEO on the people. A lot of small business owners that I work with, they're quite astounded at the people issues and how much time they have to spend on people. But I think the great thing of what you just said is that spending time on the people, you were able to make the company profitable, right? So what do you think is the main change when you can spend time on people and actually take the people more seriously instead of having them as a slogan? What do you think is the thing that actually allows you to make a profit when you do that?
Craig, I have a really simple philosophy, and it's based on that. If you have an organisation that has factories and offices and everything else there, and all the factories burn down and you lose all the offices, but you've got all the people, you can rebuild that organisation. But if you lose all the people and the factories are all still there and they've got all their gleaming equipment in there and the offices are there, but you lose all the people, you'll never rebuild that organisation. Yeah. And I think there's a real fundamental issue in SMEs and larger business, to tell you the truth, and I think it stems from people capital is not measured. The value of people capital is not measured. It's not on the balance sheet and it's not on the P&L.
Right.
The ludicrous part of the whole system is that if we take out the most expensive piece of furniture within an organisation, let's say it's the boardroom table, and we take that out of the organisation, the actual capital value of that organisation drops because it's on the asset register.
That's right.
And yet if you lose your best salesperson or your best employee, there's no drop at all. And people don't understand the importance of people because it's actually not measured. And I think, I see it all the time, Craig, and is where I've talked to people, talking at conferences or whatever it may be. And all of these business owners are all go-hung when you're talking to them. They go, yes, I get it. We've got to do something more about our people, and we've got to improve the way we select them. We've got to compress the recruitment time frame at the moment because of the war for talent, which is really, really important. And yet, as soon as they walk out of that door, it's like they've turned that switch off and they totally forget about it again. And they go back to doing exactly what they were doing before. So it's a bit like Einstein's theory of, stupidity or whatever it is, where you keep on doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting that the next piece is about this, of course, this great resignation thing that's been in the press for a long time, and the war. I think you used the term war on talent and all that sort of stuff, the shortage of skills and stuff. But to be honest, when I was a CEO, I'm always encouraging my people. I've been approached by this person, headhunted. Go for the interview. I would say go out there and see if you're in the best place for your career and if this is the best match for you. I think it's great when your people get approached and go for interviews. I always encourage them, because what is the thing behind this great resignation? For me, I think it's just people have a bit more courage because of the pandemic, and they're making decisions they were putting off. I don't think it's anything astounding at all.
Well, I think there's a couple of things, Craig, and I think during the pandemic, employees actually found out they had more power than they thought they had. And so they learned that. But where it's actually turned into an issue is because employers and senior management, this is what I see as a generalization, is they use it as an excuse. They use it as an excuse for why people are leaving them. The Great Resignation, it's not as though everybody's resigning from work and going up in the hills and living in Ninbin and not doing anything. What they're doing is they're just moving jobs. So
they're looking for something different, aren't they?
And to a large degree, I think it is a real cop-out, and I think there's a lot of senior management teams that need to have a really good look at themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the reason employees are leaving is because they're leaving managers. It's the old saying, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. And leadership capability and the development of leadership capability has never been more important than what it is now. And the problem is, for a lot of organisations, their definition of leadership development is only at the executive level. And yet the vast majority of employees report to mid-level managers and to supervisors, and yet they get no development at all, which I just have never understood, haven't understood it for decades.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's not enough mea culpa in there, is there? Let's talk about shaping people and the organisation that we're trying to put together as leaders. And let's start with one of the things I've discussed with you in the past is about how to even shape your job ads. And when you are going out into a market which is quite tough on getting the right skills for your organisation, because there's still a lot of businesses are not operating at their optimum at the moment because they can't get enough people. But how do you advise people to structure the advertisement or position their business so they can attract the right talent?
Yeah. So the process that we've developed is really based on a couple of things. One is that top quality candidates have lots of options. So a prolonged recruitment and selection process probably means you're just going to lose the top candidates. You're not going to lose the other candidates. And so there's that part. So, and then the realization that, why in some organizations are they having 5 interviews? I've never understood that. And my belief is the most number of interviews, even for CEOs, to tell you the truth, is 2 interviews. That's the most you should need. And you can, for many roles, condense it down into 1. And what it comes down to is having the relevant information to be able to make highly valid and predictable and repeatable decisions on talent and putting them in the right role. So to answer your question, what we do is, the first thing we do is, I don't believe you can go out there and even think about who you're going to attract to a job until you absolutely understand what the critical success attributes are of the role. So we develop high performance role benchmarks to start off with, and that identifies and quantifies exactly what the attributes are. And it's not as much about the skills and knowledge and qualifications and the learnable stuff. It's about the hard wiring of the individual. It's about the actual person. So it's about their behaviors. It's about their passions. It's about their cognitive abilities. We then take that information of what a high performer requires, and we actually put that into the job advertisement. So the traditional job advertisement is a paragraph about the company and how good they are. And then essentially the position description rammed into the ad of what you're going to do for the company.
That's right.
And then the final part is how you're going to apply on the company's terms. So it's all about the company. And yet what, especially our millennials and Gen Z, is what they want is what's in it for me.
Yeah, right.
They want the answer to what's in it for me. And it's more than just the salary. We know salary is always the second, third, or fourth most important thing for people. Is generally not the first. So with our targeted job advertisements, we still have the bit about the company at the start, but then the middle of the ad, we don't use a position description, because if you're applying for accounts payable position, I think you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to do in accounts payable. I don't think you need to be told in a job ad what you're going to be doing, as from Monday to Friday. So what we put in there are what are the attributes we want. So if you enjoy doing this, if you love doing this, if you don't like doing this, to the point where we will have in there for roles that require people to be highly innovative and think outside the square, which means they have very low manageability, they enjoy risk, is we will put in there is you don't like being micromanaged and you don't like people looking over your shoulder. And when people read that, where it's quite personal to them,
that's me. I'm in.
Well, and more importantly is, for most organisations, they would never admit that in an interview, because most organisations see them as being too difficult to manage. And yet, if that's what you need to perform at a high level in the role, then that's the attribute you need. So that's what we do with the job adverts. They generally deliver a 3 to 6 times increase in the number of quality candidates that apply for the job, which is substantial.
just by putting a bit more thought in the on-ramp to the whole process. So if you move along the continuum a little bit, is this giving leaders a chance to shape the type of teams and people that they want for a certain cultural fit and a business outcome?
Thanks for watching this video on Humanised Workforce Future You. Please leave a rating or review for the series on the medium where you source your videos.
The transcripts for today's video can be found on craigsafin.com. Please subscribe to the series to avoid missing out on future episodes.